for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time.
Hey, hello everybody. We are here on the campaign trail with another statewide political candidate. His name is Dr. John Spiers, and he is running for the office of Texas Land Commissioner. Welcome to the Uvalde Hesperian, where we're interviewing candidates. And where are you at right now? Where is your campaign trail lead you so far?
Well, right now I'm actually in Leander. We're traveling all over the state, as you might imagine. You know, Texas is a big state. When you try to drive to every county in a pickup truck, you realize that it is not just big, it's enormous. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place and wonderful people all over the state of Texas.
Okay, great. Tell us a little about the Texas Land Office, what it does, what it's responsible for, and why people should care about this race.
You know, that's a great question, because the Land Office is one of the least understood offices, but it's the oldest office in the state of Texas. It was created in 1836 to help us figure out who owned what after we won independence. But it was also created to help us fund education for our children. Mexico had not been educating Texas children, despite the vast resources that this land holds. And so the Land Office is part of our Declaration of Independence from Mexico. We pointed that out, and the Land Office was tasked with using our land to help educate our children. That continues today. That mission has not changed. We have 13 million acres that is under management of the Land Office as part of what we call the School Land Board. And we use this to help fund the permanent school fund. Now it's complex. We work within the State Board of Education to take the revenue we've created from that 13 million acres to invest in other ways. And to give your listeners and viewers an idea of how big 13 million acres is, that is over 8 times the size of the entire state of Delaware. That's a big chunk of land, and we're very fortunate, very blessed to have that. Now that includes on our property, I tell everyone, on your ranch, you have grazing land, you have minerals, you have oil and gas. You have in West Texas, we have a mountain in Hudspeth County of rare earth elements that we're going to try to access. And we believe we can bring several $1 billion out of the ground to help benefit the United States. We're very cautious about who has access to that. We don't want foreign nations to be getting that.
Right.
The Land Office is also responsible for helping Texans recover from disaster, whether it's a wildfire or a flood or along the coast, hurricane damage. And as you might imagine, there's a lot of attention paid to hurricanes, but it's not just that. And then the Land Office is responsible for managing one of our most sacred spots, the Alamo. I'll tell you a little story. Whenever I travel, I generally wear my cowboy hat, got my boots on, and I suppose I just reek Texan. Folks will always say, are you from Texas? And you know, I'm very proud to be from Texas. One night, I was in New York City attending an event. We were on a charity board, and my wife decided she needed a soft drink in the middle of the night, and I wasn't going to pay $16 to get something out of the refrigerator. So we decided I'll go across the street. I could see this drugstore right across the street.
Yeah.
I go across the street. I'm wearing my cowboy hat, got my boots. I generally wear a vest, and I stop in the doorway, and I hear this little voice ring out across the drugstore. Are you a cowboy? Well, I'm not going to pretend to be a cowboy. They're a breed apart. They're tough. I said, no, but I am a Texan.
Right.
And for the next half hour or so, I had my picture made with people from all over. Now that's an amazing story in itself, but the final portion of the story is the most important. This one young lady came up to me. She was from somewhere in Central Africa. She's wearing this tribal garb, very, very fascinating. And she looks at me, and her words to me, they ring true even today. She looked at me and she said, "Remember the Alamo."
Wow.
Now, wow, exactly. Why is that so important? Because the Alamo is the light of liberty. It shines bright across the world. And so I have been, like many Texans, really upset with the way the Alamo has been managed here lately. And that's something that we have to address. We want to remember the Alamo and honor our ancestors, the sacrifice that they made so that we can have this great state.
So just kind of, not to interrupt, but to kind of catch up, I read a little about what's transpired over the last 10 years. the Daughters of the Texas Republic, if correct, had jurisdiction over it for some time, and then it was either it was that management and was taken over by the state of Texas. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, the Daughters actually saved the Alamo. The Alamo had fallen into disrepair over many years. And in early 1900s, the Daughters of the Revolution recognized, the Daughters of the Republic recognized that it was a historic site and it needed to be saved. And so they raised the money to purchase the property, to preserve the property, and to protect the property. We owe them a tremendous debt. I mean, I cannot overstate that. We owe them a tremendous debt. Over time, there were some issues, and yes, the state did step in and has been working to take care of the Alamo ever since. I have met with many of the members of the Daughters and have heard their concerns. And I think that we need to, out of respect for what they have done, for the great sacrifice, we need to continue to work with them to protect and preserve the Alamo. They have in their archives great resources that are important to all of us. And so that's something that we need to do going forward. We just need to manage it appropriately. We need to honor it. And we need to just stand firm against this whole concept of reimagining Texas history. I say this time and time again. If it's real, it's not imaginary. And if it's not imaginary, you don't need to reimagine it. It's real. Right. Texas history is real.
It's kind of like the whole narrative concept. Narrative in history is in news news and narrative per se is they're oil and water. It's like if you're talking narrative, you're not talking news, and you're talking anyway. It's kind of yeah. I see what you're saying with that. So
yeah, that's really important. Yeah, but it's just really the tip of the iceberg for what the office does. The Land Office is also responsible for honoring our Texas veterans. We have 3 things that we do at the Land Office for our veterans. We have a Veterans Land Board, which makes money available, loans available for veterans to purchase homes or purchase land, remodel their land, remodel their home. We also have veterans care homes, nursing homes that are specifically designed to provide care for our Gold Star families and our qualified veterans. Those are very, very important. And we have to pay close attention to that, because if you're not staying on top of it, then those things can slide. During COVID, for example, we saw a rise in the mortality rates at our veterans nursing homes, veterans care homes, that was in excess of what it was in the rest of the country. That was, in excess of what we think it should have been. There are places like New York where it was absolutely horrible, but we want to be certain that we're providing the very best care for our veterans. These are folks that help us preserve and protect our freedom. They made sacrifices for us, and it is all Texans want to honor that, and so we will. Wow. And then the last thing that is with our veterans that's so important, and it has been a sore spot for many Texans, our veterans cemeteries. Mm-hmm. We have 4 that are truly Texas veteran cemeteries. But in a state the size of Texas, there's a lot of groundswell, grassroots push to have other veteran cemeteries to honor our great Texas veterans. In a state this size, it is difficult for someone to travel. Well, the folks in El Paso are closer to California than they are to Louisiana. I mean, we have to understand, Texas is vast. And so we want our families and we want our Texans to be able to honor their loved ones near home. And so we're going to work on that. It's a big remit for the Land Office. We do a lot. Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And I want to we're limited on time. So I want to get to some of the issues that we were talking earlier also about Uvalde and the immigration issue and the border. And as you and I were talking, that's a very cogent and real issue for us here in Uvalde and the Crossroads community. It's affecting us in a literal fashion. So talk about what we're seeing and what you think needs to happen there. So, well, this is the #1 topic all across the state, whether I'm in Amarillo or down in Corpus Christi, whether I'm in Brackettville, Uvalde, it doesn't matter. one of the first questions I'm always asked are, what are you going to do about the border? What should we do about the border? The border is a crisis. And yes, the federal government has failed in their responsibility to us. Now, we have a choice to make. We can just complain that the federal government is not doing their job, but that's not necessarily something that's going to change. We need to look to a real solution, because that's what Texans do. So in the land office, we have almost 600,000 acres that are at or near the border. And on that land, we can actually help build a barrier wall, a border wall system. Now, I emphasize the word system, because merely erecting a fence is not going to be the solution. People can always go over a fence, under a fence, around it, or through it. It should slow them down, but the rest of the system is how we know they're there. Because what we want to do is to allow our law enforcement agencies to respond. We need to let them get there to enforce the law. And by slowing them down and detecting them, we allow that to happen. The land office has men and women that man much of this land. They're responsible for managing this land, and they're down. We have grazing lands. We have islands in the Rio Grande that actually belong to the state of Texas and are managed by the land office. And so we know what is happening, and we want to make certain that our folks can be a force multiplier for law enforcement all along the border. It is a crisis. I have seen game camera footage from many ranches all across the border that have haunting images that you wish you could unsee, but they're very real. And it is a problem. People ask me in say Amarillo, they say, where's the border? And I point to their door. That is where the border is today. In Uvalde, you see so much traffic coming through Uvalde, going into not just the heart of Texas, but into the heart of the United States. And it is not the narrative that you may hear in the mainstream media. Many of these folks coming across are here, either they're being trafficked, there's drug trafficking, human trafficking, both of which are absolutely horrid and a real problem in and of themselves. But then there are others that are coming in that are here purely to do us harm. And we must address this. Now, my agency is just a small part of the entire response, but I've already been talking with folks in many of the other offices. You imagine on the campaign trail, I get to see attorney general candidates. I get to see United States Congress candidates. And we get to talk about a federal response and a state response. I've talked to many sheriffs and many local leaders in your county and as well as others, trying to figure out ways we can make, it's my campaign slogan, a safer and stronger Texas. Because there's no reason, it's never acceptable for a Texan to live in fear in their home. It's never acceptable for a Texan to be afraid to go tend their stock. It's never acceptable for a Texan to be concerned about their children going out to play because of this immigration crisis, this invasion that we're facing. It's a national security crisis. Let's call it what it is, a national security crisis.
No, it certainly is, and you really hit on a subject that I think is really hit home here in Uvalde, in this area. I guess kind of going forward from here, there's a lot of candidates on the ballot on the Republican side, and it looks like a real horse race. And I did notice, I was like PolitiFacts, one of the candidates, their name's escaping, but has generated a lot of, I guess, on the inside the Beltway endorsements and things, which doesn't necessarily make me want to pull the lever down, but it's raised a lot of money. What are you seeing as far as the race? I mean, with all those candidates, I mean, from what I've heard from some other places, there's not any polling being done on some of these races. What would you like to see happen? What's reasonably assumed? Is it? What would you say to somebody saying, well, it's just a done deal? And I will say this, now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to say this and let you go or let you talk, but George P. Bush was the Texas Land Texas Land Commissioner, and he is not anymore. So there's no incumbent. Kind of talk about some of the things I've kind of mentioned and where you see likelihoods, because like I said, there's a lot of people in the race, a lot of names on the ballot, and just go from there. So,
well, there are 8 candidates on the ballot on the Republican ticket, and so one of the first things that any student of campaigns says, oh, well, there'll probably be a runoff. And I think there will be a runoff. There is indeed one candidate who is the inside of the Beltway, an Austinite, someone that has kind of been in the political swamp for a while. That's okay. I'm not worried about that because I'm here to represent Texans. I'm not using this as a stepping stone to become lieutenant governor or attorney general, as George P. is trying. I'm running to be your land commissioner. I can't say that's true for other people in the race. I only know my heart. Right. But what I believe that my message resonates with Texans because, see, I'm running to represent all Texans. I'm running to represent the men and women of Texas. I'm not running to represent special interest groups or lobbyists or other big name politicians or big money donors. I'm running to represent the folks that have $5 to contribute to the campaign, or the folks that say, look, I have nothing to give but my time and effort and energy. Well, those people are wonderful. Those are Texans they value. I'm running to represent the ranchers and farmers who are struggling to provide the food, fuel, and fiber that make America great. I'm running to represent those that believe in faith, family, flag, and freedom. I'm running to represent true Texas values. That's so important to me. And that message resonates. We have seen so often folks from inside what we call the triangle that believe they run all of Texas. They make all the decisions for Texas. And they forget about the men and women who make Texas great, who live in the periphery, who are outside, who are on the border, who are in the panhandle, who are in far west Texas. They're in North Texas and East Texas. They're working hard to educate their families, put food on their table, to make America great, to make America safe. And they feel forgotten. Well, they're not forgotten. John Spiers is paying attention, and I'm running to represent all of them as much as anyone else. Their vote counts. I want them to know their vote counts. And I'm encouraging them to make certain that they exercise their right to vote. Because if you do not exercise your right to vote, if you just assume that someone else is going to be looking out for you, you'll get that government that they think you need, not the government that you think you need. We have to be active.
Yeah, I often tell people, it's just my view, that you'd be surprised on local races especially, but even statewide, how few votes it takes to make a difference. And for the people going to the polls, looking at those names, and I know I would assume you don't believe this because you're running, but the race isn't a done deal. I mean, your vote, there's no throwaway votes anywhere, right? I mean, is that?
I think actually a vote for John Spiers is going to make a real difference for Texas. I think I'm going to be in the runoff. I think that if I don't win outright, but we're going to run until the race is done, and we're going to represent Texas long after, because we believe in this. We believe in our mission. We believe in our state. I believe in our people, and we are fighting to make Texas safer and stronger, to give Texans the representation that they deserve, that they need, that they want. And I think that message resonates.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I'd like to talk to you all day, but I know that people's attention.
Well, I'll talk all day.
Yeah. People know me, know I can talk all day as well. But my wife actually got me a t-shirt years ago that says I can't shut up. So anyway, I think it got worn out for wearing it too much. But anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm going to upload this video. I will put it on the Uvalde Hesperian website. I often share these on the Uvalde County Citizens Forum, which has about 900 members, and it will be shared where people can share it in other places as well. So our little corner of the world will get to hear about John Spiers, and hopefully have a more informed voters coming out to the polls. Which
thank you so much. You have wonderful people there. I've spent many an hour there at the Oasis. So yeah.
you know all the watering holes.
It's right. A great place. I love it.
And but no, thank you, and good luck on the campaign trail. I hope to get to meet you in person sometime. Off.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Over and out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I won't make it easy for you now.